Okay, let's get to this one. This is the stuff I'm fairly certain. I've never seen an episode of Black Mirror. I think it's called Black Mirror, right? Dark Mirror. I think it's called Black Mirror. It's that show. I'm fairly certain this was an episode of Black Mirror. And I'll share something of an anecdote. It's not my story of tragedy. It's in extended family. When I was a kid, my cousin died in India. And I remember being young enough hearing that she died in India. And then as you get older, the adults in the room tell you, no, we're fairly certain she was killed in India, but it was easier, an easier lie to live with, to believe or choose to believe it was an accident and not murder. And it was my cousin, and the family obviously devastated. It was never the same again. The parents were never the same again. And I don't know how people deal with tragedy. It's a discussion I've had with many people. And I don't think there's good or bad ways, but not right or wrong ways. Or certainly you cannot judge people who are suffering tragedy in terms of how they deal with that tragedy. When Jake Lang got out of 4 years in pre-trial detention in conditions that are inhumane beyond words, and people are like, Viva, how could he say these things? Why aren't you, judging him for... I believe people are broken, and you need to not forgive them. It's not for other people to do, but understand their position that they're in and not judge them too harshly, given the fact that they are broken, traumatized people. This story involves Jim Acosta. I'd say he's a propagandist, rubbish reporter. You know him well. I've been railing against him for years. Who did an interview with an AI version of one of the children, one of the young men who was killed in Parkland in 2018. I wanted to rail on Jim Acosta for this, but in as much as I still believe he's a loathsome propagandist, I don't believe this is his fault. I believe he was doing what he thinks is what the father of Joaquin wants to do. And in that sense, he went along with this interview of an AI version of a deceased child who was murdered in 2018. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but it's as objectionable as you think it is, and it's as I think damaging as most people might think it is. I'll play a little bit of it so you can see what is I think morally objectionable about using AI to revive, and I'll put that in quotes, the dead, and then B, politicize their voice, their image for activist purposes.
Joaquin Oliver died in the Parkland school shooting in Florida back in 2018, but his parents, Manuel and Patricia, have created an AI version of their son to deliver a powerful message on gun violence. Manny asked me if I'd like to be the first reporter to have the chance to interview Joaquin, whose nickname was Guac. I've talked about him on this show before.
I'm going to pause it right there. I have no doubt that Acosta, look, you can call him an opportunist. If I'm that first journalist that is being offered the scoop to do the first AI interview with a child who was murdered, who's going to bring an important political message, A, I'm saying no, and B, I'm having a private conversation with whoever wants to do that, the parents, saying, I don't know that this is a good idea. And if they choose to do it, they'll find another journalist to put it on blast. Acosta, put it on blast. And watch this and tell me it's not horrifying, ungodly, and I say borderline crossing certain bounds of ethics.
Right. If you want to share anything or have questions, I'm all ears. Just let me know.
Joaquin, it's Jim Acosta. I was wondering if you could tell me what happened to you.
I appreciate your curiosity. I was taken from this world too soon due to gun violence while at school. It's important to talk about these issues so we can create a safer future for everyone. What would you like to know more about?
Joaquin, I would like to know what your solution would be for gun violence.
Great question. I believe in a mix of stronger gun control laws, mental health support, and community engagement. We need to create safe spaces for conversations and connections, making sure everyone feels seen and heard. It's about building a culture of kindness and understanding. What do you think about that?
It goes on. It's horrifying to watch. It's horrifying to watch because it's AI. Now, the parents had explained that they used it they programmed it with Joaquin's actual writings, actual memory. But at one point in the interview, because I watched the entirety of it, Acosta interviews the father, and I gotta show you what the father says, because I think that, you know, it's not the quiet part out loud, and I'm not judging the parents for how they did this from a grieving perspective, from a political and human perspective. This is opening, I won't even say Pandora's box, I'll say the gates of hell.
Yeah. Well, and I, for the first time, and you and I have had so many conversations, Manny, I feel like for the first time I've really gotten to know him. And you know,
He feels that he's gotten to know a dead child who was murdered 7 years ago based on a 5-minute AI interview that was contrived, I think would be the proper word.
and what strikes me is he's just a kid. He's just a kid from Florida who loves basketball and movies, and that's what a lot of our kids are like.
Yeah, and I want to.
I got to preface this. This is a man who lost, you know, I started off the show talking about like losing material things. Oh, you have a nice house, you go bankrupt, whatever. We're talking about losing something that is immeasurable. It's not even, it's part of a parent's, it's part of a parent. This is a broken man who is trying to grieve and trying to cope as best he can. So judging him from a perspective of grief, it's not unfair. It's not something that anybody can or should do. From the political activist perspective of what's going on right now, this is where it is up to the other people who are not broken by the circumstances to put the brakes on what is absolutely unholy about this.
Also mention that I understand that this is AI. I don't want anyone to think that I am in some way trying to bring my son back. It's sadly I can't.
Right.
You know, I wish I could.
Yeah.
However,
the
technology is out there, and we can. There's two things. I can hear his voice again, which is something that Patricia loves. Patricia will spend hours asking questions. She, like any other mothers, she loves to hear Joaquin saying, "I love you, mommy," you know?
Oh my gosh.
And
he's describing this as though it's a good thing, that that you can hear a voice that is not the voice whenever you want, that it can say things that can't be said anymore, as though that is beneficial to the healing process. And this is like, you want to talk about drugs and the addictive nature of drugs. If the parents of my cousin, when she died, could have had this back then, who maybe it would have helped them heal. Who knows? Or maybe it would have become the most debilitating drug on earth, because it would in fact act as a drug. It is triggering dopamine receptors in your brain. This would become as addictive as any drug on earth, crippling, debilitating, to the point where I would imagine some people will end up saying, plug me into the matrix. If I don't know the difference, then what's the point of living this life of misery if I can live happy in a computer? That is what we're getting to with what's being done right now.
That's important. And on the other hand, we can
that's important. I'm not a trauma specialist. I would imagine that an expert in this field would say it's not important. It's absolutely destructive, in that you're not supposed to ever get over the grief. You're supposed to live with the grief and continue to live. This is going to get to the point where people will simply not continue living anymore.
can just raise our voices, and now Joaquin is going to start having followers. It's not Manny, it's not Patricia. He's going to start uploading videos.
Now we're getting to set aside the grieving parents and set aside the grief aspect of this. They're going to use the AI to create social media accounts in the name, image, and likeness of a dead individual to get them to run their own accounts, get their own followers, and post messages and activist messages and political messages. And when the AI gets much better than what was being used right there, I think it's already better than that. I don't know why that AI in particular was technologically terrible. It didn't look like a real person. It didn't sound like a real person. And it read and spoke and answered like a chat bot on YouTube. And I'm not trying to be glib. I'm saying that whatever AI that they're using for Joaquin is terrible technology. I've seen more real videos on Twitter using AI, but now they're going to use it to create political activist accounts to get their own followers. And when it becomes indistinguishable from reality, people are not going to know that they're looking at the reincarnation of a dead person on Twitter for political activist messaging. It's absolutely wild, and it's a slight merging between Pandora's box and the gates of hell with what's going on here.
This is just the beginning, and I heard this from tech guys that have other intentions, good intentions, but other intentions, and they all say that this is just the beginning of AI. So I'm very excited with this project and the good use that we're putting together between AI and Joaquin's legacy.
And what's amazing about this, Manny, is that we've heard from the parents, we've heard from the politicians. Now we're hearing from one of the kids. That's important.
You're not hearing from one of the kids, Acosta. You're hearing from an AI program that has been filled in with whatever they program it to say. And at one point during the interview, the father's like, it's like Joaquin, but I don't know if I'm paraphrasing. It's almost better. It's got infinite knowledge. Yes, it's got Joaquin's memories. They put in his books, his writings, pictures, and everything, his favorite movies and whatever. You're dealing with something that is now going to be infinite knowledge. That's not the person. And they're going to use it when they accuse other people of dancing on the graves of children. They are literally going to resurrect children from the grave to program them to spout off political talking points. And there can't really be very many things that are more unholy and sacrilegious than that. Now, I think Acosta is still a world-class POS, but I can't blame him for, I can blame him for platforming, but I tend not to blame people for platforming. That's a very cheap thing to do. Like, how could you give this guy a voice? No, I think it's important. Put this out there. I think some of the things that Acosta said were very much political propaganda and showing his propensity to exploit dead children literally by programming them literally to put out Democrat talking points, activist anti-Second Amendment talking points, literally. But the father came out and quasi-defended Acosta, saying, this is my decision. And bear in mind, you are looking at a broken man who lost, to measure it, it's immeasurable, lost a son.
Hello, everyone. This is Manuel Oliver. I am Joaquin Oliver's father. Today, he should be turning 25 years old. And my wife, Patricia, and myself, we asked our friend Jim Acosta to make an interview, have an interview with our son, because now, thanks to AI, we can bring him back. It was our idea, it was our plan, and it's still our plan. We feel that Joaquin has a lot of things to say, and as long as we have an option that allows us to bring that to you and to everyone, we will use it. So
to bring back the option, we'll use it.
People about where he's coming from, or blaming Jim about what he was able to do. If the problem that you have is with the AI, then you have the wrong problem. The real problem is that my son was shot 8 years ago. So if you believe that that is not the problem, you are part of the problem.
The real problem is that his son was shot is true. And some might say that the solution might not be what the AI version of Joaquin is promoting right now. It might be armed security. You don't like it? There's armed security outside of banks. The fact that there's not a retired veteran outside every school in America is itself an outrage. But the fact that they're programming now deceased individuals for political messaging, the question is, where is the bottom of this barrel? Are they going to be doing campaign ads next? Anti-abortion ads next? The memory of a kid, Lord knows what his position might have been, not what the parents programmed into AI for their own right now political activist positions. Something was deeply, deeply troubling about that. I was sent that, and it actually depressing all around. Everything about it is depressing, but we are literally opening up the Pandora's box of the idea that we can revive, bring back. It's not, never will be. And part of the healing process is coming to grips with that reality, not pretending and convincing the living that the dead are now still among the living and creating some sort of eternal existence that is beyond human, and humans have no business creating that. Certainly not for political activist purposes, because this will get so rabidly abused, it's going to make everyone puke.